Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary Thashman, and I'm a career advisor here at ASU. This is on February 18th, it will be my 7th year here. So it's the longest job I've ever had. And so when they say you're going to have 6 to 10 careers, you probably will too. And I think about, things have dropped off my resume, things have stayed on my resume. So a resume is a continually evolving project throughout your entire career. You'll add things because it is a marketing tool. And we'll see that in a minute. But I want to start with just talking about career planning, because it kind of goes into what are you going to put on your resume. And the first thing when you ask about career planning, it's who are you? And I always say, and we may craft one of these because I know you all can write very well. So if you could summarize in 2 or 3 sentences who you are, what do you want, that would be the summary up at the top of your resume. And then the next part of it is after you figure out the who am I, what do I want, then where are you going to find those jobs that match the kinds of things that you want. I would also say, though, as soon-to-be new college grads, one of the things that you want to think about is, I want to launch my career versus I'm going to find my dream job. I mean, it would be amazing if every one of you found your dream job, but usually that's an entire process throughout your entire career. So, but this is kind of where we're going to start, think what we want to do and be able to articulate that not only on a resume, but at the career fairs that are coming up. I just drove every one of those employers, not everyone, but a lot. And I would ask them, what impresses you at a career fair? They'd always say people that can come up and say a little bit about who they are and what they want. So your resume is going to help you define that. So how would you guys define what a resume is? We all have heard that, but what do you think a resume is and why do you think you need one? Audience participation is great. Yes.
It's the introduction to the would-be employer so that they can decide whether they want to physically meet you or even talk to you over the phone, right, or internet or however they do it.
Exactly.
Your entrance.
A resume isn't going to get you the job, but it's going to entice an employer to want to call you to do that. Any other thoughts on what a resume might be? A lot of people say it's a whole listing of your work history, when in fact it is not. Did I put there that it's a marketing tool? No. Okay. It is a marketing tool. So I told you I've had many careers. Well, I was a Spanish teacher. I've been an HR manager for the Sheraton hotels, and I've done a lot of academic advising and career advising and those kinds of things. So on my resume, if I'm going to go apply for another new job, I'm going to put the things that I want to focus on up at the top, even if I did that 10 years ago, because I want employers to see that first. It really is a marketing tool. I grew up in Iowa. I detassel corn. It is not on my resume. Anybody else detassel corn? You looked at me like, wow, it's a miserable job. I think they have machines that do it now, but we used to do it. It is not on my resume because I never want to detassel corn. So think about the things that you want to do are the things that you highlight on your resume. Also, think about looking at job descriptions, because sometimes the first person to look at your resume is not even a human. It's a machine that is scanning for keywords. So you have to carefully read job descriptions and make sure somehow those words show up on your resume or on your cover letter. So you need a resume to get in front of an employer, to get invited to interviews. You also need a resume for going to career events. We have the Humanities Career Fair coming up. You're going to want to have that resume in hand so you can showcase your skills. The other thing that a resume is, it's a piece of, that's bad. It's a piece, so I may stay back here. It's a piece of English majors or humanities majors. if you sit down to write an essay, a 10-page paper, a thesis, a poem, ask, and it's up there, what's the first thing you ask? Who is your audience? And your audience for a resume, as I said, it may not even be a human, but when it is a human, it's usually a very busy professional, human resources professional, who spends 7 to 10 seconds scanning for the things that she or he is looking for. That's all the time you have. That's why we have to make sure that we are tailoring these resumes to fit what they're looking for. The engineering school here has a career center, and they hired a woman who was the global recruiter for American Express. And I still take this with me. I went to one of her workshops, and she always says, if you fold your resume in half, will this top part get you the job? So remember, this is where you have to put the good stuff. So if it says they want you to be a writer, or you have to know Excel or Outlook or whatever it might be, you want to put, or you have to speak another language, you're going to put those things up at the top. So think about, who is my audience and how can I grab them? Well, they're usually very, very busy people looking to scan people out to get down to the people that match their qualifications. So all of this is to have on there, and sometimes employers don't even have a job description. That's the hard part, when they just say, we're hiring an intern and we want them to still have a semester left of school and here's our company. When you see those kinds of things, you don't have to necessarily tailor, but these are skills that every employer is looking for. Every year, the National Association of Colleges and Employers does a survey and says, employers, what do you want students to have? These are, I don't know if there's 10 up here. I think there are the top 10. These are the top 10 skills every employer is looking for. So if you don't know what the job is requiring, these might be some of the skills that you highlight on your resume. What do you think is the #1 skill on here that every employer is looking for?
Communication.
Hooray, that's the answer. Communication is the #1 skill, whether, it doesn't matter what your degree is in. So whatever you do, use the word communicate on your resume. Most students I know work in retail and restaurant. Perfect place to say, communicate with customers, to describe products, or to help with menu selections, or whatever it might be. Always have that word on your resume somewhere. And it's that important to have on there. All these other ones, you certainly as English majors probably have all of these, right? And instead of just saying, and we are going to have a skills section on our resume, rather just saying friendly, adaptable, detail-oriented. Instead of telling, you're going to show them through jobs that you've done, through projects that you've completed, through organizations that you're a member of. Because if you read, good writing is showing, not telling, right? So we're not going to just say we have these, we're going to demonstrate it in our accomplishment statements on the resume. Okay, so I want to talk about resume must-haves, and because every time I see them, sometimes these are missing. And the first is your contact information. And here's just 2 samples of what they might look like. You'll see Sunny Devil. Sunny Devils is listed this way. You can do it this way. But you must have your name, address, telephone number, email address. And if you have one, you can put your LinkedIn, because often you can put sample writing, papers that you've written. You can put other things on there, creative projects that you've done, and they can go look those up. Make sure the phone number that you have on your resume, I always say, look at the resume and have somebody dial that number. And the reason I say that is because on my own resume, I actually had transposed 2 numbers. No wonder I wasn't getting calls for interviews, because they're not going to go try to find you. They've got hundreds of applications. How many people think, so let's say there's a job posting. How many people do you think apply for a certain job? Whatever job it might be. Make a guess.
500.
It could be. It really depends on the job, but more people apply for the job than are going to get it. So you have to make sure. In fact, I heard this story, and this was a couple years ago. Delta Airlines was hiring flight attendants, and they posted it, and they had so many resumes come into their system. They shut down the system a couple times. In fact, they said it was easier to get into Harvard than it was to get a job at Delta Airlines. So when you think about that, your competition is out there, and they can't contact you, or it's a bounce back email, they're not going to go search you out. They're going to say, okay, who's the next best candidate? That's what they're going to do. Some students are from North Dakota and are going to ASU, and I bet are really happy that they're not now. So they'll want to put permanent address, current address. Put one address. Put an address that you would actually be able to receive a piece of mail if they wanted to send you something. Most correspondence is done via email, but some employers may want to send you a contract to sign that you have. Actually, they are going to be mailing it to you. What else do I want to say? Some people say, I don't want to put my address on there because that's a breach of privacy. Avoid that. In fact, it can be to your advantage. If you want a job in Arizona, this can often be the way, because then they know, oh, good, she already lives in Arizona. I don't have to fly her here. We don't have to do a Skype interview. It makes it easier. In fact, sometimes when students say, I really want to move back to San Francisco or Billings, Montana, or wherever they're from, I always say, if you can put a local address on there, all the better. In fact, I worked with a student this morning who's from Hong Kong. She's going back in May, applying for a job there, and it said, must be, I don't know, legal resident of Hong Kong. Have her, for the first time ever, put both her Hong Kong address and her current address here. But, that said she was a legal resident. So make sure make it easy for the employer to get a hold of you. Any questions about contact information? I still to this day will see resumes without phone numbers, without emails, and I'll say, what happened? And they'll say, oh, I forgot. And it does happen. Okay, the next thing, and we're just gonna go right down the sample resume that you have at hand. The next thing is a summary. Remember, we started off of saying who you are and what you're looking for, because it will bring a focus to the resume, and the employer will expect to see those skills that you're talking about. Or what if you want an editing job, they would expect to see somewhere you've done some editing. It's going to kind of bring a focus and highlights what you can do for them. Your summary may change for every specific job you apply for. In fact, tailoring your resume is the best way to get results. Now, I know we upload our resumes onto job boards, so that's great. You can have a broad one for putting it into Sun Devil Career Link or to any other job boards that you want to use. I think Sun Devil is the best one for soon-to-be college graduates, because they're not looking for people with 5 years experience. So I think that's a great one to use. So here's how to start. Well, okay, so you're seeing that summary down here. I think the best way to start a sample summary is to say, what are the 2 things you're best at, or what are the 2 best skills you bring to an organization that you want to use in a job? So do you guys want to write those down or put it in your laptops?
Say that one more time.
What are the 2 greatest strengths you have, or what are 2 of the best skills? And in fact, that's a way to craft it. 2 greatest strengths and 2 skills that you want to use. And just write both of those down. So your 2 greatest strengths might be, this person says they're highly motivated, they've got good communication and editing skills. Think about the things that, if somebody asks you, what are you good at? What would you answer? Can you do literature reviews? Can you analyze poetry? What are some things that you can do that will be useful in the job you want to do? Does anybody want to share what their 2 things are good at? Great, thanks.
Creative and analytical.
Fabulous. Creative and analytical. So he might say creative and analytical college senior, and you could put with a background in customer service or whatever kinds of jobs you've had. Then what kind of a position would you seek?
I don't know, maybe a tutoring job maybe an editing job, something like that.
Okay, so seeks a position, tutoring or editing, or I would only put one in using editing skills. Remember, when you upload these to job boards, they will be pretty general. When you're applying for a specific job and employers tell us exactly what they want, they'll say required, must have, boom, boom, boom. Then look and see if you have those things and make sure those words are on here. Any questions about the summary? Yes.
I actually, I emailed the resume Dropbox people. They told me that they thought it would be good to, instead of having an objective statement, to have just sort of a, like this sort of says.
Right, we call these summaries. Objectives used to be to obtain the position of career advisor or to obtain the position of editor with, Sand Hills Publishing. So, yeah, we've moved away from objective and we now call it a summary. And it really is 1 to 2 sentences of who you are and what you want to do. So It gives a focus.
Okay.
So did you have an objective on yours?
Yeah, well, mine is much more brief. It says an excellent student with tutoring and research experiences, but this seems to.
Okay, and that's a good start, but then you want to say what you're seeking. Remember, this is who I am, this is what I want. So, and then we call it a professional summary.
Okay.
So just add what you're looking for at the end of that.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. So how was your experience with the resume Dropbox? I love it. One of our consumer of our
Yeah, it was great. Person was very helpful and had no
fabulous.
problems.
Oh, good. I love to hear that. Okay. The next thing on your resume should be your education. As you can see, that is here. If you look at 100 jobs, probably 90% of them will say required, must have bachelor's degree. So that's why we put our education up at the top. And here, this one is actually an English resume. So you put the degree you're getting, the date you're getting it, the school. If you have a great GPA, you should put that on there because employers say if they were good in school, they'll be good at work. And that's usually probably not a bad thinking process. Any awards and honors that you have, now we separated it here, but definitely you want to put some awards and honors because those show achievement. Employers are looking for people who can get results. And by having a good GPA, by being on the dean's list, by getting scholarships, by study abroad. In fact, I probably don't have study abroad on here, but that's another good thing to put.
So then can you explain the best way or tell us the best way that how you would put the study abroad info? I mean, how.
Okay, I would actually put, I don't know if we have it on here, but I would put under education, I'd put a big bold heading called study abroad. And if you went, where did you go? If you went to Sevilla, Spain, or wherever it was, I would say the school you were at and the length, and then I might put actually 1 or 2 bullet points on what do you think you gained from that experience. So gained Spanish speaking skills or gained global diversity skills from, or a multicultural outlook. You want to say something about what you did there that would be of value to the employer.
Now, I have an AA from Phoenix College from 12 years ago, but I also did a study abroad program in 2001.
Okay.
And I'm doing on this summer. So would you say, because that's a long academic career, to add both of them?
I would say anything that is not from ASU, you don't have to put. I know some people put that, they want their 2-year degree where they got it. I said, employers just want the bachelor's degree.
Okay.
The road you took to get there, maybe not as important. Now, if the study abroad you did in 2001, where was it?
Guanajuato, Mexico.
Okay, so let's say they need a Spanish speaker to go back to Guanajuato.
Yeah.
Then you might want to put that on there.
Okay.
So, because they'd say, oh, she's been there, she understands, she knows something about the culture there. But that'd be a really narrow, tailored experience, yes.
For graduate students, would you still list your GPA or anything like that, or is that?
I would okay, and that's the other thing. So if you are getting a master's, so your master's would be first and then your bachelor. So that's very appropriate. But putting a community college, you don't have to. Now, some people say, I'm very proud that I did this, but remember, you've got very little, remember folding this resume in half? You want to make sure that you get enough good stuff up here at the top that the employer can see that. Yes.
I know a lot of this is tailored for people who don't have, a long history of work and whatnot. And I'm wondering, does it change if you do? Because some of the things that I've done in the past were upper level professional jobs, which may be more important than necessarily the education, other than just a blurb about, okay, I'm going for a Juris Doctorate. So other than, having the Juris Doctorate from Sandra Day O'Connor, some of my professional experience is more important. So is switching the education and the profession around?
You can do that, but I always say read the job description carefully, and 90% of them always have the education qualification first. I'll say required, must have bachelor's degree, must have JD, must have master's degree,
Sure.
and 10 years experience. So because they list it first, that's where I say to list it.
Sure. I'm just, because I've had jobs where they wanted a bachelor's degree,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have a bachelor's degree
Right.
because experience.
Sure.
counted.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I realized the whole idea of, tailoring it to the person that's interviewing you. But in that instance, I mean, is it just a good rule of thumb to go with the education first?
Yes. Now, for somebody who has a lot of work experience, this summary, so for example, my resume, probably says, I don't know, highly successful higher ed professional with a, career doing da-da-da-da-da. And I have like 9 bullet points of skills that are highlighted, that are the most important skills that would encompass a 20 or 30-year career. But then I still have, especially in higher ed, education is the number one thing that says minimum qualifications, must have master's degree. So if that's the first thing they screen by, then you want to have it first. Okay, and we're happy, we can always review your resume. So don't have to put, high school's definitely gone, no high school, any of that. All right. Okay, the next part of your resume, now this will change who you are and the experiences that you have. For students who don't have a lot of relevant work experience, by that I mean they haven't edited, they haven't written a blog, they haven't done, so whatever it is, sometimes your class projects can be the thing that will get you noticed. And on this resume, you will see 2 course projects. Here is why course projects are important, and these are the 5 skills you get from that. So I would write these down. You are able to conduct research, and every one of you has written multiple papers, so you definitely know how to conduct research. You mentioned analytical. You analyze literature, you analyze data, you analyze all kinds of things. So research analysis, sometimes working on a team, usually in your major, maybe you're not working on a team. Writing and presenting. So those are 5 skills that employers kill for, and it doesn't matter what your major is. The ability to write and present will be very important in most jobs that you have. My husband's an engineer, and he has to stand up in front of customers all the time and do presentations on the next greatest product that they are developing. So those are really good skills to showcase. Now, if you have work experience, these will go away. There are some students we're relying on. If you have a lot of good work experience, then you might not have class projects on there. But for some majors, if you've done a really interesting editing, if you edited, I have no idea what you might have edited, and that's the kind of job, and you did it in a class project, then you want to put that on there. Even if you have 10 years experience working in retail and restaurants, which is what most students do. So class projects can be really, really important. Or if you have enough skills and experience, they may not be on your resume at all. Yes.
Okay, I have a question. If you're doing a part-time job while going to school, which the vast majority of students are, but the part-time job has nothing to do with your degree, do you even mention that?
Excellent question. I think you will, because every job gives you something. So, as I said, most students I know do restaurant and retail. That's what we basically do to get through school. Still, you are learning customer service. Remember I said communication skills, teamwork, time management, inventory management. You gain all kinds of skills from doing those jobs. So I think they're important to put on there because employers want to see, do you have work skills? You know, are you able to work on a team? Can you show up on time? Do you know what it is to go in and work and have multiple things, projects to manage and balance? Okay, any questions about course projects? How many of them should you, yes,
Well, I did an internship as a research student. So
perfect.
I'm wondering, you have an internship category here. I'm wondering
Yes.
if I should list my internship research experience under course projects or internship.
I would put an internship.
Okay.
And I thought, no, I guess, okay, we need to put the internship. Employers love students who have done internships because it shows you can go out and do something in the professional world, maybe complete a project, maybe do a presentation on it. So yes, the internship always trumps course projects. So you'll see that here. So if you've done one, definitely put that above there. Okay. Then the next part will be your experience. And when you should always start with your current position and work backwards. Now I say that, but okay, well, we're going to stick with that. I was thinking, for example, if I decided I wanted to go back into Spanish teaching, I would move my Spanish teaching up over my career advising, just so they'd see that first. As long as it makes sense to them, because I'd put a heading teaching experience, and then I'd put higher ed experience. But basically, for most students who are typical new college grads, you're going to lead with your current position, and then you're going to work backwards. The rule of thumb is go back 10 years. Probably none of you have 10 years of experience. Maybe there's a couple of us. Okay, so, and here's an example of, and notice we have bulleted points. They're easier to read. And instead of saying, I made coffee drinks, ran the cash register, and cleaned the bathrooms, we're making what we call accomplishment statements. And that doesn't mean that you're making being a barista sound like you were curing cancer, but it does mean that you're showing achievement or accomplishment as a result of what you're doing. So this person, notice they led with the word communicated with up to 300 customers. So it shows they are able to work in a very high volume experience, and can be important. Okay, here's what I call an accomplishment statement. Ordered supplies, why? To maintain stock levels crucial for quality service. So if Starbucks runs out of coffee, they're in big trouble, right? So that's why you're saying, I did this to solve this problem or to meet this goal. So for my job as a career advisor, I might say, provide advising services to students. Why? To assist them in career development or to help them launch their careers, something like that. Okay, so notice this person had looked at that list of what do employers want, and here they are with problem solving, communication, and then what did they do? They developed a loyal customer base. How? By cultivating strong client relationships. So these show accomplishments versus just a listing of ran the cash register, opened the building, doing those kinds of things. So and here you will see, and these are a little bit shorter, and I'll go into Mary's theory on how many bullets should you have, but notice this one, establish rapport on the phone. Why? To set appointments. So it always says, I did this and this was the purpose or the accomplishment. So one of you, would you care to share a job you're doing now, and let's try to craft an accomplishment statement for it. Anybody working? Okay, great.
Normally, I don't have a regular job, but I do other things. But since school got out last semester, I work really part-time at
Okay.
Maybe it's called McAlpine's, and it's in Phoenix. It's in my
It's like a
neighborhood.
soda fountain or
Yeah, it's
something?
been
I've
around
read
since
about
the
it.
1920s, but they also have an antique shop,
All right,
and the owner asked me if I wanted to work in the antique shop because I had been. They have a calendar they put out every year, and I photographed the calendar last
great,
fall.
okay.
And because we got along so well, she asked me to come work for her. So it's not a lot of money. It's just an hourly plus commission.
So it's
but
retail.
a blast. It's
So-
a lot of fun.
Tell us, give us an
Well,
idea of what
it's-
you do or try to make an accomplishment
Yeah.
statement. So you're in a store and you're trying
In a
to sell
very old
antiques.
building.
Okay, and you're trying to sell antiques.
And vintage stuff.
Okay.
And it's a lot of either regulars who come to the restaurant to eat and then they stroll into the shop which is connected to it. And they may or may not buy anything, but I always greet them and we talk. And there's a lot of,
Relationship
Oh,
building.
yeah.
Very, okay, this talks about, building relationships is very important in
Yeah.
any,
And the owner, who's about only a couple years older than me, has told me it's great to, even if they're not buying, to talk to them because if they're regulars in the restaurant
Mhm.
and I acknowledge them as being regulars in general and important to the business, it helps on both sides of the business, the restaurant side.
sure, okay.
And the antique side. And then there are people who specifically come in to go shopping.
Okay, so let's try to craft, this is what came from what you said to me. I might say, communicate effectively or greet customers warmly to enhance relationships or to build customer loyalty, something like that, so that they keep returning back. So you could think about it as customer loyalty, describe products, create a welcoming environment. It's all about building those relationships. And how many of these bullets do you need to have? Well, okay, these only have 2. My rule is 3 to 5, because if I even look at a resume, and I was an HR manager, if I see 20 bullets, I just can't even bear to look at them. And I'm just telling you the truth. And ask an employer, when I see 20 bullets, it's just like looking at, I'm trying to think of, it's too much text. I won't read them all. I probably have too many on my resume. So 3 to 5, that's my rule. That's not any employer's rule. You can ask an employer at the Humanities Career Fair, how many bullets do you like to see? Yes.
So I worked at the same company for 12 years. I did a lot of different things. Do I just pick a few of the top things, or do I, because otherwise I'm gonna have a 5-page resume because I
Right.
also have things that are, and it was nothing to do with where I'm going.
So you may want to just, the nice thing is it will show a very longevity. Employers love people who stay forever because they hate turnover. So that's great. They'll go, oh, good. She's going to come and stay with us for a long time. But because it's not what you want to do, if you could put the name of the company and then put 3 or 4 job titles with 1 bullet each. But again, this is a marketing tool. If you never want to dehassle corn again or work whatever, doing the inventory, then do you need to highlight that? It's a marketing tool. Always think about, I want to show employers what they need. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, what if you work for someone, I don't even know how to explain this. I've for years worked for someone who is a known entity in Arizona, but I don't work for his business, which he has since sold. I work for him personally
Okay.
in his home, and I have for years. But how? And it's just obscure all the stuff I do for him. But how do you put that on a resume?
I would say personal assistant and
Yeah.
then whatever his name is and the, Phoenix, Arizona and the dates, because a lot of people do have personal assistants.
Yeah.
So,
But also, what do you put? Because he was the founder of the Phoenix New Times,
okay.
and he sold it a couple of years ago, but he still
But
has.
nobody's going to hire him. Nobody,
Yeah,
if you
but
just
I
put
mean,
his
you
name, does
put
anybody
what-
know that, what I'm saying is,
Do you know
don't,
what
it's,
they do, or who-
they don't care who he is. Just like, okay, I work at ASU, the largest university in the country, or whatever we call it. What do we say? Whatever it is. I don't put that on my resume because nobody cares. They're not hiring ASU. They're not hiring the founder of the New Times. They're hiring you. So think about, you don't have to describe him. because why they're not gonna hire you.
Yeah.
So focus on the skills you have that you gained from that being a personal assistant that are relevant to the next job.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. And how many jobs? I would say the rule of thumb, go back 10 years. As I said, most of you won't have that much experience, but you don't have to go back any further. Okay. Now it says, depending on your background, these may be optional. I would cross that off and say they're critical because I didn't write this presentation, but okay. And this one I think is critical, community involvement. You can call it student or activities, but I like community involvement because all successful people give back to their communities. And in fact, I've had students come back to me and say the craziest thing, I got an interview because I was a volunteer at Pick Your Organization. This can make a difference on your resume. Employers like to hire people who are involved or demonstrate leadership. So this person they were a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. What if you happen to be one? What if the person reading this resume says, oh, I just did a build last month, This can help. They will like you much better if you have some of these things on your resume. Yeah.
I see that there are no dates for these volunteer experiences.
That is perfectly fine. I was the president of the Friends of the Chandler Library Board for years. I mean, like 6 or 7 years, a long time. But now I haven't done that probably for 4 or 5 years. So I don't put the dates on there. I still have that on there because it was a significant amount of time. And I really was the president. So it was leadership. It was doing all those things. So I keep them off. If you want to put your dates on there, fine. But the dates aren't going to get you the employer is going to be more interested in the kinds of organizations you're involved in. A word of caution. Remember, good writing. Who is my audience? You probably want to avoid what could be perceived as controversial organizations, unless it is helpful to that job. So a personal example for me, I am a member of the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. It is not on my resume, not because the ACLU is not a wonderful organization. I always say, look, who is my audience? And I live in Arizona, so I don't put it on there. Now, if I wanted to apply to law school, I know we have a very activist law school. I would put I'm a member of the ACLU on my resume. Does that make sense? I mean, you can take it to an extreme and say, you probably don't want to put the National Rifle Association on there unless you're applying to work for the NRA or, another organization. And I'm not picking on the NRA. Do you see what I'm saying? Sometimes putting religious things on there, people get impressions from your resume. They go, oh, and I'm a member of the Sierra Club too, which is, we all want clean air, clean water, a good environment, but it's not on my resume because people go, oh, she's probably one of those radical tree huggers. So it's not on my resume. Now, if I were applying for another job that happened to be involved with environmental issues, or if I applied at the School of Sustainability, guess what goes back on my resume? All of these things, you have to consider who your audience is. And remember, this is a marketing tool. Put the good things that they want to see. If you are not a member of a student club or organization, become a member of one. It will look good on your resume. And even you can put things like participant in Pat's Run or volunteer for the Ironman that was here. Because some people are running nuts and they'll go, oh, great, we love that. Are you all members of clubs or organizations that you think would be helpful on here? Definitely put them on there. I really have had students come back and say, craziest thing, I put that I was volunteer at Animal Humane and that just happened to work for me. That's what we talked about in the interview. Yes.
So on LinkedIn, you can join groups and things like that. What if, you don't necessarily put that on your resume because it might possibly be, like I'm a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. That may or may not be helpful depending on where I'm going, but I have that on my LinkedIn.
Okay.
Just leave it off the resume, keep it on LinkedIn.
These days, I think most employers go and check you out on they'll Google you or they'll go to LinkedIn and find you. Now, I don't know enough about the Daughters of the American Revolution have an opinion on that. So it might,
It depends, it depends.
that's the thing.
And
Every single thing depends. David has a thought on that.
Well, I would assume, your LinkedIn is probably going to cover a lot of different things
Right.
that you've done in the past, or a lot of different associations that you're a member of. Whereas the resume, as Mary was mentioning before, it's going to be compact.
Right.
So you want to take the most pertinent information and encapsulate it there. So, and of course, obviously, as Mary said, it's going to change depending on who the audience is. I think that is where it might be on there or be removed from there.
You're right. There is, if there's ones that you think would be better suited to get you, it's that whole, who's my audience? What are they looking for? What will help me?
So are you saying with what both of you just said, the LinkedIn is more expansive, but the resume needs to be more concise?
I would say for new college grads, a resume should be 1 page. For people with working, I have a 2-page resume. Anything more than 2 pages becomes too much. Unless you're going to be a professor and go into higher ed, then it's a CV and it's as many pages as you can possibly have. That covers everything from every conference you've attended, every publication you've had a credit in, but that's a whole different thing. Employers will spend 7 to 10 seconds looking at your resume for a first screen and go, oh, in pile, and then I'm going to look at it further. So how many organizations should you have? Again, it's Mary's rule of 3 to 5. I've looked at some, what I call the overachieving resume, and they've got, 30 organizations listed, and I said, oh, please. It's just too much. It is too much. And so use your discretion, but then it looks like, oh my gosh, they do everything. And I don't know if I want to work with somebody who does everything. Okay, the final thing on your resume, and this also could go other places as well, are skills and certifications. When I work with engineers, the skills have to go up at the top because they have to know C++ and Ruby on Rails and every other thing that they need to know. So it goes up there. Depending on what the job posting will dictate where you put that. And the good news is you can always cut and paste it where it fits. But you definitely want to put every one of your computer skills. If I look at 10 jobs, 9 of them will say required, must know Word, Excel, PowerPoint. And they specifically say Word, Excel, PowerPoint. So instead of just saying Office, remember, you might have a scanner looking for Word, Excel, PowerPoint. And even though you put Microsoft Office, it's not on there. So I would put those kinds of skills. I would also put all your social media skills. If you blog, if you have a Facebook. I mean, so many companies now want people to be social media managers and do their Twitter all day long, or do their Facebook pages, or their LinkedIn pages and put the updates in there. So make sure that you put those on them. They're very marketable skills and you should have them on there. If you were wanting to go into a school and you have first aid, CPR, and fingerprint clearance card, put those things on there. And probably if you work in a restaurant, you have a food handler's card. If it doesn't fit the next job, you don't have to put that on there. Yes.
Back to the fingerprints.
Mm-hmm.
Because I lived in Washington DC for a while, I've passed a lot and I've been fingerprinted, but that was 4 years ago. So
If it's no longer active,
okay.
and most jobs, I mean, every teacher has to have a fingerprint clearance card. So if you know that's a requirement of the job, go get them ahead of time. That's because it makes it easier to hire you. So
Okay, so it's not that you've had it in the past, it's what you have right now.
right, so that you could walk in and start teaching that day because you can show them this card.
Yeah.
And okay, so those are the only thing that was missing in the presentation was the internship. But you'll see this resume has everything. They can tell when you're graduating, they can tell your degree, all of your skills. So this is really important. Have someone else review your resume. You use the resume Dropbox and you were happy with it. That makes me very happy because we trained our career to do resume critiques. The one thing I see often are typos, and I always see The two words I see misspelled most of the time are people say they're mangers of the restaurant instead of managers, or they provide customer service instead of customer service. I see those, I mean, every day I see it, I just laugh and I go, oh, I'm seeing it again. I can't believe it. So, and then also the phone number is really crucial too, because if you have the wrong phone number, they're not going to be able to find you. Have someone else look at your resume. It really will help you when you're going out to get a job. I worked with a gentleman the other day who, long story, but he's looking for a job in the six-figure range, millions, and on the second line of his resume, there was a typo, and I went, oh my gosh. I said, I'm not used to working with jobs at that level, at executive levels, but I can review your resume. And I said, this, at least I could find something that will help you. Have somebody look at your resume. People misspell and have typos all the time and nobody uses spell check even though they have it. And spell check doesn't catch everything. So have somebody review it. Make sure it is 1 page for a new college grad, 2 pages if you have an extensive work history. Anything over that is just nobody, people aren't going to look at it. I'm telling you the truth. And you can ask every employer, would you look at a 5-page resume? And they'll say no. We'll look at the first page, but that's it. Okay. So now we're going to move quickly to the cover letter. And you as English majors should be able to write something much more fabulous than this. However, I do want to just talk about the components of one. A cover letter can help sell you further. Remember when I talked about show, don't tell, which is the hallmark of great writing? You too should be able to show an employer how you can, the skills, if they're looking for a certain skill, you should be able to show them in a cover letter how you have it, where you've used it, and how you can benefit them. And that's really what you need. So the components, okay, so we don't have it. The components are, even if you're doing this via email, you still would use a formal business letter format, and you'll see that here. So you'll use the business format. I always say the first paragraph tells them what job you're applying for. I was an HR manager at a hotel. We hired restaurant, housekeeping, sales, spa, golf course. It helped me if you would tell me which one of those jobs you were looking for. And then you start off by saying a couple skills, and that's kind of a preview of what is going to come here. Then in the first maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs, definitely 1, maybe 2, you talk about what pertains to them. Don't tell them that you had a study abroad when they need you to be able to edit documents. That's what you're going to talk about. Then you ask for an interview in this paragraph. And then finally you say thank you, because you should show appreciation. If they're looking at 100 applications for one job, then you definitely want to say thank you. This one says, I will follow up in a week to verify that you've received my application. That is great if you can do that, but oftentimes we don't know who we're sending things to. And the other thing, if you put that, you better make sure you do follow up and show that you're a professional, that if I'm really going to do it. And the other, okay, so most of the time you don't know who you're applying to. So avoid using to whom it may concern, because it will concern no one. Instead, put Dear Human Resources Professional, or Dear Hiring Committee, or Dear Hiring Manager. Try to personalize it as much as you can. I have applied for jobs many times. I know you could search forever and never find the person's name. So instead of doing that, get your applications out there by using Dear. Usually the first person to look is a human resources person. So Dear Human Resources Professional, that's a good one to use. So always try to personalize it. Definitely a cover letter is 1 page. A 2-page cover letter is too much. So 1 page, succinct. You're all English majors, you can be succinct writers. And then the other thing you'll need for your, what I call your job search toolkit, is a reference sheet. And here's just a sample of it. These documents would never be stapled like this, and they also wouldn't be printed back to back. We just try to save paper because I'm one of the Sierra Club tree hugger people. So But on here, you're going to want to put the name, address, and email and phone of a person that they want to contact. Always ask permission. Don't have somebody call and they'll go, oh, they used me as a reference? Really? I fired them. Don't surprise people, especially when you start applying for jobs. Let your references know. Just giving you a heads up, I've applied for a couple positions and I'm really interested in, so if they call you, here's what the job was. Just kind of give them a heads up so they're not caught by surprise. So get their permission and tell them when you start the job search. So they would be more expecting that. How many references should you have? 3 to 5. Some employers will specifically say the number they want, then always follow that direction, but 3 to 5. And another word of wisdom, put your best one on the top. People read from top to bottom. And I was an HR manager. If I called the first one and they said you were amazing, I stopped calling because I didn't have time to call everybody on the list. Put your best one up here. Avoid using personal friends. So it should hopefully be somebody that you've had a professional relationship with. Professors, academic advisors, it could be a supervisor, a coworker, somebody that could speak about your skills and do you show up on time and what kind of work you perform. Okay, so in summary, this is our little tagline. We need you guys should help us think of a new tagline. The sooner you start, the further you'll go. So get this resume ready, submit it to the resume Dropbox or come to our office. We have trained career peers that can review a resume in a half-hour appointment. We call them same-day appointments. You can even call and say, I want a resume review with a peer. You can make an appointment with one of the professional advising staff, but for sure have it ready for this event because it's coming up on March 3rd. How many employers do you think are going to be there?
I don't remember the last count. I think it definitely is in double digits, but I don't remember the last count. Yeah.
Fabulous opportunity. When we had our career fair over the past 2 days, there were over 1,000 students there. It's big, it's loud, it's noisy, you stand in line. At this one, you'll have a chance to actually personally engage with the employers who attend. So I always say, and even find out about them. And it's okay to walk up and say, here's who I am, here's what I'm interested in, and how would that fit into your organization? They would love to talk to you. I hooked 3 people. They said, we'd love to see English majors. And I went, okay, I'm going to share this information so you get an invite. So thank you very much for your time and your attention. And I hope this will help you craft a resume that will get you positive results and get you interviews. And we still have time for maybe a couple questions.
What is resume Dropbox?
Why don't you tell her what resume Dropbox is?
Yeah, resume Dropbox, it's like, it's the service that you email them, sending them your resume, and they will, look at it for a little bit, and they'll email you, their like a corrected, or with suggestions.
They don't edit them as in, highlighting and saying, use this word instead, but they'll say, it's more comments.
Yeah, well, it's comments, yes, you've got a Word document with the comments on the side, so it's pretty helpful.
And is there a cost?
It's free. And how long did it take? Is it a 3-day or a turnaround?
To tell you the truth, I don't remember, I know it was pretty quickly.
Right. We try to say and that kind of travels around the 4 campuses. So today might be Tempe's day and our peers are madly, furiously going through the resumes. So, but yeah, get it in ahead of time because it usually is, I think, to 72 hours. Yes.
I have 2 quick questions. For the references, do you always send them or do you wait for them to ask for them?
I wait for them to ask. Very good question. If an employer says send cover letter, references, writing samples, salary requirements, then send them everything. But if not, I'll wait till they ask for them.
Second question was salary requirements.
Right.
Do you actually give that to them?
Yes. Well, okay. David has a.
Some positions will actually require it.
Mhm.
There'll be some employers when you apply for a position, they will make it a mandatory question on like the application form. Otherwise I have never done that. I've never given it to them first, because you want to be able to negotiate.
Right.
And I've been looking at several jobs and they all ask, name your salary requirements, and I just feel like, well, first of all, I don't know, and second of all, I don't wanna.
Is it
give
something
myself-
that's, like, on the electronic application form, is it required?
No, not required, but it's just there, or it's in their, request.
Does it allow you to put a range? I always say give a high and a low range. And you can go on our website, asu.edu/career, go to students, go down to the graduating student survey report. You can go in and put your degree, and if it's you said a master's, you can find out what the graduating students got made as salary. So it kind of gives you some kind of a basis in what should I be asking for. Now, some of those, when we go in, well, we can actually probably go there.
What about, if it's a specific, job title? Maybe you could look at like occupational outlook.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go to our website real quick. And so you're a master's in English?
History.
Oh, in history. Okay, so let's go. So here we are. And I'm going to go to the students. And then I'm going to go down to graduating student survey report. And then we're going to go to average salary. And by the way, the new data will be in, oh, maybe it's already in. Okay, I thought it was by March, but okay. So I'm going to put history. And let's go see a search. And hopefully we have some. Okay, so it gives you, all right, so we don't have any master's information. Now, when you see these $102,000, okay, either they had a great sense of humor, because I can tell you there is no Bachelor of History making $102,000. But this could have been, is history an online major? Maybe this is an executive that was working, so take these numbers with a grain of salt. However, I liked what David said. You can go to Occupational Outlook. You can go to salary.com. You can find all different kinds of places to look. But this gives you an idea. I mean, yeah, I'm looking and saying, really? So but always try to give them a range if it's allowable, because you don't want to say, I must make $48,000 a year. And then, they were willing to pay you 47. And then they say, okay, but you've talked yourself out of a job for very little.
Yeah, I'm always afraid they're gonna just throw it away because we have too high of a.
Mhm.
And Mary,
Yes.
am I right, it's been a while since I looked at salary.com, but you can actually look by specific location.
Yes.
So if you're gonna be moving from
Mhm.
New York, you can look at salary
You can-
ranges for that
Right.
position there as well.
Right, because some are different. So, well, thank you very much, and hope to see you at all these events. You have some amazing opportunities to connect with both alumni and with the employers. So, by the way, on the 24th is How to Sell Yourself. The people from Vanguard are coming. Vanguard loves to hire. They're trying to get the words out. They're a financial company, but they want people who have humanities backgrounds, because you're working with people. So come and listen to what she has to say. Thank you. And ask that question of her. Say, what would you do? That'd be a good one for her too. Thank you so much.
Guys, if you wouldn't mind, take some extra copies, maybe tell